you really have to supplement, but it's a very cheap supplement. I know, for example, a month's supply of 2,400 units costs €3. At least it does in my case, because I import it from the UK in large containers. You can buy it very cheap online. It doesn't matter what form. Vitamin D, in my view, isn't a vitamin, and that's why I have it in speech marks. And I feel vitamin D is a hormone. It's a class of 8 different hormones that all act on the calcium homeostasis. Basically, they act on the parathyroid gland to control the movement of calcium and who knows what else throughout the body. There are cholecalciferol, which is vitamin D3. It's the most absorbed and the most available form of it. But I think laughably, the only one that's available in prescription, 1-alpha, has recently been studied in Medscape, as an article about it, and shown to be the least effective and the least easily converted and the most toxic of the forms of vitamin D. It's absolutely laughable that our industry, our health services, seem to be happy to license products that do the most harm and are not happy to look at products that basically can't be licensed. You can't license vitamin D because it's a vitamin. It doesn't have a single medical claim, and because it's freely available, there's no money to be made from it. But there's definitely a lack in a healthcare system that can provide these liquid SIP feeds that cost up to €2 to €3 a day, and I mean vitamin D would cost €2 to €3 a month if we could allow it on a medical care prescription. I think we should campaign for it. It's absolutely vital. The HSE themselves have doubled the recommended dose for children in the last year. They have it all over their websites, and yet they don't provide it on any form of medical care. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. But they're quite happy to provide methadone to the community that might need it, and that's okay too. It is a medical condition, but I see a terrible contradiction there that preventing illness doesn't seem to be a priority in our health services yet. Maybe that will change. Its main use at the moment is in osteoporosis prevention. That's where you see D cropping up in products like 1-alpha, dihydrotestosterone. You see it in, interesting enough, plant sterols that you hear all this hype about in cholesterol. The sterols are very closely related to D. Malnutrition and rickets. Would you believe rickets is really appearing throughout the UK and Ireland? Mainly because of, I would say atmospheric and weather, but no, they think it's because of population movement and that we have a lot more dark-skinned people coming from countries that have religious beliefs that doesn't allow exposure of their skin to sunlight. And a combination of those two means that in certain districts throughout the UK and now in Ireland, rickets, which is a softening of the bones in children due to a lack of vitamin D, is beginning to reappear. So neonatal supplementation, in other words, giving vitamin D supplements to young children and even to mothers while the children are in the womb, is becoming vitally important. The recommended dosages have increased, as I said. Dosage levels, to give you an example, you'll see vitamin D expressed in milligrams some places and in units in other places. It's very confusing. It happens because vitamin D has these 8 different forms, and they express it in units because it was a more measurable form when they couldn't isolate each other. But generally speaking now, 1 milligram of D3 or D2 is 40,000 units of vitamin D. So that's a good number to remember. 1 milligram is equivalent to 40,000 IU. In children, the recommended minimum now is 500 units. It's probably the requirement is more. I'll use units because it's easier to dilute down in units when you have things available in 2,400, 5,000, 4,000, 10,000. The risks of overdose of vitamin D are extensively reported but not extensively seen. So my personal feeling is what was always thought to be vitamin D toxicity may well be vitamin A toxicity because they often come together in foodstuffs like liver and in supplements. A and D are often seen because they're oily vitamins. They're stored together in the liver, so they're often extracted together. The risks in high dose vitamin D, high dose in an adult would be 60,000 units. Hypercalcemia, that basically means you start forming chalky stones throughout your body. It could be in the kidney, it could be in a tumour, it could be in your lungs, it could be in the liver. Gallstones are a calciferous lump as well, but you don't want them basically, so you don't want to be taking doses that are going to cause that. Hyperphosphatemia, again, calcium and phosphate are intricately linked in bone formation. So the toxicity, the other element of toxicity that I have continuously asked about, and I haven't got an answer, is does the drug accumulate? You know, the body does store vitamin D. We know it stores it in the muscles, under the skin, and in the liver to an extent. So if you take a dose every day, are you eventually going to end up with too much of it in the body? I asked the professor who was talking about this last week, and he said he feels the stored form of it is completely non-toxic, and it only becomes toxic when it's hydrolyzed. He feels the body is so used, over 4,000 years as man evolved, to dealing with vitamin D that there is no issue. The only issue with vitamin D toxicity would be if you took too much of it at once. So in other words, it would have to come from outside. Again, that doesn't answer the question. If you took too high a supplement every day, would it cause this toxicity? But he does feel that you can store all you want of it, even by supplementation. You would have to be taking the hydrolyzed form of it, in other words, the converted active form of it, to cause any harm. And that's not the form we buy it in, and it's not the form that it's stored. Okay, I'm pushing on. I think more or less finished anyway. Vitamin D, where does it work? The scientists in you, if you're going to look at where you think it works, it's thought to be involved in preventing faults in the genome DNA. Telomere HLA-DRB1 is the one mentioned in 50%, maybe more. I think like 100% of all MS patients have a fault in the HLA-DRB1 telomere, which is a specific script in the genome. They now know where the fault is that causes multiple sclerosis-like conditions. There are 3 predisposing factors, the EB virus being the other one. The EB virus causes HLA-DRB1 to be fault. It's thought that vitamin D repairs and allows good transcription, so proteins that are formed, in other words DNA that's being formed in the presence of vitamin D is less faulty. It stops the oxidation. There are numerous modes of action of the group of vitamin D or hormone D preparations. There's nothing more, let me just go, yes, it mops up the oxidized phospholipids. This is where they think it works. It reduces CD3 counts as well. But vitamin D is a damage limitation hormone as well. It basically stops oxidation products doing damage to your DNA. It's almost impossible to get it from foods. Cereals actually kill vitamin D, and that's the word they use. Cooking also damages it. Sunlight is by far the best source. There's a group in Canberra called Goya. It's a paraphrase of get off your arse. Goya promotes the provision of vitamin D to all their children. It's by far the best way I would advise people to do it. Get outside. If you have to take supplements, my advice is a safe maximum would be 10,000 units a day. A lot more people can take a lot more of that, but that would be my general rule, and that's all I have to say for now. We'll take questions at the end.